With this session, we start a new chapter of Genesis and also a new chapter in Jacob's life. Jacob had just finished crossing the Jabbok River from his battle with the Lord. The Lord gave him strength to prevail against him. Wow! Talk about God's grace. But now we continue in Genesis 33, 1-5. All right, let's go. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids, and he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindmost. I'm reading from the King James, that's why it's a little awkward. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. When we read over this, we think that we know the story. But let's unpack this a little bit and see what really happened. Chapter 32 really closed with verse 31 in chapter 32. And it said this, As he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he limped upon his thigh, upon his leg. It was after he crossed the Jabbok River himself to rejoin his family when Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. What an awesome, crazy sight. Just to cross that river and looked up, uh-oh. Now was the test. We closed the last chapter, chapter 32, with the comment, Jacob was prepared for anything. So now the question is, was he really prepared for anything? We don't know whether the 400 men that accompanied Esau were all armed or not. And we also have no evidence of any kind that Esau intended hostility towards Jacob. Nevertheless, Jacob, what did he do? He divided the children to Leah and to Rachel and to the 2 slave girls. He put the slave girls and their children in the front, Leah and her children behind her, and Rachel and Joseph to the last. Now you see, just in case they would be attacked, Rachel and Joseph, actually Rachel was his rightful bride. That's the bride he worked for. And that's the one he loved the most. And of course, he put the loved one in the back for their protection. Obviously, Jacob was not prepared for anything. See, so now after positioning them in the strategic spot, Jacob passed over before them. He stepped in front of everybody. Then he bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. You see, Jacob was taking no chances. You see, this was a common gesture. When you say, I'm your servant and you're my king. And actually, Esau was a king. So by this gesture of bowing 7 times, taking a few more steps, bowing, taking a few more steps, by this gesture, he showed reverence towards his brother. So, what did he do? He partly revered his brother and partly prayed to God to appease Esau's wrath, if he had any. And this was a token of profound respect, and though very marked as to showing, I'm submitting to you, it would appear natural in that society. Esau, besides being the elder brother by an hour, maybe, was also the ruler of Seir, which would later be named Edom. And so according to the custom of the East, that is where he was entitled to respectful treatment, both because Jacob was his younger brother, not by much, they were twins, and also because he was king of Seir. He was ruler of that entire kingdom. See, Esau's reaction to Jacob coming down and bowing in reverence to him. I'm your servant. Wow. Esau's reaction was more than Jacob could have ever hoped for. Even in his wildest dreams, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him. Wow. Do you know what? He was sincere and genuine in his conduct. And at the same time, it was a great-hearted act as he just dismounted from his horse or his camel or whatever it was he rode. And he ran. Esau ran to meet him, not in anger, but in love. After all, they were twins that had been separated for 20 years. Esau embraced him, fell on his neck, and kissed him. Esau had buried all his resentment, forgotten all his injuries, and received his brother in brotherly love. So wonderfully had God changed his heart over the years. With this action, we can see reconciliation, getting together again, brother to brother. And they wept. I'm certain Jacob wept for joy to be so kindly received. But Esau perhaps simply wept for joy to be reunited with family. And that is what I really believe. When I went back to my country of origin, Germany, and I hadn't seen my cousins for 49 years. Oh man, we embraced each other. We wept. Oh, we just, I can't describe the feeling. That's the feeling Esau had to see his brother Jacob again. Then something else happened. Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children. And then he said, "Oh, who are those that are with you?" You see, when Jacob sent the present ahead to meet Esau, he had sent Esau an account of his wealth and success, but he made no mention of his children. And he probably did that to shelter them from Esau's rage if he should meet him as an enemy. You see, Jacob was so different in personality to Esau. Esau was a man of the moment. He got mad. Well, he could probably kill somebody when he got mad, and then it was just as quickly gone. But not so with Jacob. Jacob remembered, and Jacob thought ahead. In that way, Jacob was probably more of a schemer than Esau was. So, Esau, therefore, had a very good reason to ask this question. Who are they who are with you? And Jacob answered with a serious answer. He said, "They are the children which God hath graciously given thy servant." He speaks of his children as God's gifts, a heritage of the Lord, and as choice gifts graciously given to him by God. Though there were 12 of them, ranging from 7 to teenage years. Whoa. They must have been quite a handful. If Jacob hadn't lost his hair yet, well, he was, after all, 97 years old. If Jacob hadn't lost his hair yet, he probably would have lost them by now. But you see, now Jacob here is teaching us an important lesson when he answered Esau. Parents would do well to remember this lesson from Jacob. In Psalms 127, verse 3, we read, "Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward." That's a gift from God. Listen to that. Not only were the children gifts graciously given by God, but Psalm 127, verse 3 says they are also a heritage. Parents are given the awesome responsibility to leave behind a living heritage and testimony. There are many times when I looked at my daughters and my children and said, wow, God gave me responsibility over that. Wow. Do you realize that God is counting on our perceived helplessness of this daunting task? This makes it extremely essential for parents to depend and rely fully on God. But sad to say, most parents have not plugged themselves into God, into this great resource, much to their eternal regret.